All right, Jason, thank you for coming on. This is the Quality Values Podcast, and we met through Devin. So I always just like to start with common ground. Yeah, we'll get into what you do, but first of all, how do you know Devin?
Yeah, well, first off, thanks for having me on.
Yeah.
Appreciate it. Very happy to be here. Devin helped me write my book, which is pretty good. He's an author and very savvy business person, super connector. And I'm very thankful to have had him work on that project and glad that he connected us up.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, let's jump in right there. I love doing these episodes with people who have the book since you've got the whole outline and it's all organized in your head. I'll try to pull it out of you as much as I can. What's the thesis of your book? What's the title and the thesis?
Yeah, so the title of the book is Reclaim Your Role as CEO. And I've worked with a good number of CEOs of established companies. They've been, around for sometimes decade, maybe two. They're kind of in this range of 3 to 5 million in terms of revenue, maybe 20, 30 people. And they just kind of get stuck. They get into a pattern of things for various reasons. And the book basically is a playbook to help CEOs get unstuck, to get them kind of out of that pattern and reclaim their role as CEO as opposed to just being trapped in a company doing its thing.
Yeah. So real quick, what is that distinction right there? Like, what are CEO activities versus non CEO kind of trapped in the company activities?
Well, it's more so the trapped or the kind of element that makes it so that they're stuck is they're not necessarily growing the company. They're kind of solving the same problem twice, I think, or multiple times.
Okay.
Basically, if you're not solving a problem, solving new problems, you're not growing. So that's usually a pretty good indicator that there's something going on. Another big one is the CEO who might be the lone wolf. They got into something because they love marketing, they love writing, they love PR, whatever it is, and they've taken that craft and scaled up to 20, 30 people. They should be very proud of that. But as a part of doing that, they learned about business kind of on the go. And even though they have a really good executive team that can implement and do amazing things, manage clients, and basically propel that craft, whichever one it is, um, you would then end up in a situation where um, the CEO has grown so much from a business perspective that there's a leadership gap in running the company versus just performing your craft. So
Okay.
that's usually there that gap kind of presents itself.
Yeah, that's interesting. Rocket Fuel, the EOS. Uh,
Heard of it?
yeah, they break things down that there's the visionaries and what's the other ones like the pragmatic, the operators. It's but like the basically yeah. So and basically the CEO, the way they have it is more in charge of the visionary activities. So they're kind of checking the angle of the ship, making sure that everything is on track with the compass and all that, um, setting what the actual destination is and all that, and then the operator comes in and builds the systems to make sure that everything's the ship is functioning properly.
Oh,
Um,
100%. It's just a lot of times when you're in that kind of range, you don't have the CEO, the CFO, the CTO, the COO. You
yeah,
end up kind of when you're in that range of 1 million, 2 million, 3 million. Uh, that CEO has to wear a lot of those hats. And yes, they do have to be the visionary. But you know what? If the light's out, they're going to go get that light bulb and they're going to go and take care of it themselves.
yeah,
Uh, that you are 100% right in the fact that that is the classic role of a CEO. But the little secret when people kind of start their own business and start being an entrepreneur, which heck, this is your podcast, so more than anybody. After this phone call gets kind of hung up, You're going to be doing editing. You're going to
Yeah.
be plotting the social media. So you're going to have you're going to be doing the technology. You're going to be doing the marketing. You're going to, you wear all the hats when you're kind of in a small business.
Yeah, yeah, and it's a blessing and a curse, you know. So how does it work exactly? I remember one of my professors in college. They said this one little nugget. We were working with Excel. It was kind of tangential to the lesson. They were saying though, if you're doing the same task over and over, there's probably a formula that just does it for you. And they were just talking about Excel, but that guy through my time there, he kind of showed me that was his philosophy on life in general. And he sold several companies, and he's now an angel investor. He's done well for himself. But so yeah, that it sounded you something you said when you were talking about the CEO solving the same problems over and over again. That kind of jogged my mind on that. But how does your system or your approach, how does that apply to CEOs? Like what are you doing? How do you build the systems? How do you go identify the areas to focus on? How does
Yeah.
it all work?
100%. I mean, basically, you're in that situation where if you're solving the same problem over and over and over again,
Mm-hmm.
then something's stuck. And usually it's, one of kind of three things. It's a finance thing, it's a team related thing, or it's like a system and process related thing. So, I mean, I could go into each one of those, but like on the finance side, a
Well,
lot of times,
actually, can I stop you real quick?
yeah.
I'm just curious what those three buckets are interesting to me. Why, like, are those the three buckets? Does that kind of encompass the whole company? Kind of, you could split any operation into one of those three buckets, and then yeah, and then how did you come up with that? Is that the way you break it down? Since I've heard kind of the and I'm a trainer. People kind of break down all exercises into core movement patterns, and then there's a lot of exercises that are kind of hybrids. But it's for the same kind of thing in business, where there's kind of the core departments. So you've got these three. Why those three? Before we jump into them.
Absolutely. It's where I saw the most pattern, is what it boils down to. Just about everybody that I worked with had some form of a finance issue. Uh, so started saying, hey, here's the common stuff that, if you take care of these things, tick these boxes, you're going to be okay. You can put the finance thing aside. Same thing with systems and processes, which, is now on ultra amp up thanks to AI and agents and that kind of leg of the world. And then building. You can't do anything without a team, so you need to make sure that you're taking care of that team. So that's how I kind of look at it. I mean, there's a bunch of different ways you can kind of slice it up. There's a zillion systems out there, but this is how I kind of organized things.
And then when you're working with CEOs, you're working with your clients. What is your actual process like? Do you meet with them in person? Do you have an app that they use to kind of go through your system? Do they read your book? And is there how does it work exactly?
Yeah, so the book is just really a sales thing. Think of it as like a business card, like our common friend
Yeah.
has kind of said, and I think 3 or 4 episodes ago. I did watch it, by the way.
Oh, cool.
And, you know, it's designed to make you money, is what it boils down to. The book actually was profitable before it even published, because I was just talking to people. Hey, I'm writing a book on this. Oh, you do that? Can you help me with this? Yeah, let me write you a scope. And before you knew it, I had sold enough stuff that the book was already paid for just by talking about it. Which kind of goes, this can kind of go in the bin in terms of lessons learned for virtually anybody out there. Don't be the world's best kept secret. Talk about it. The book just happened to be an excuse for me to talk about it. If I didn't do the book, I wouldn't have done that. But maybe if I just talked, I would have had a similar result. Who knows? But anyways, to answer your question more directly, the process that I go about is, yes, I generally meet with folks in person. And I start with a kind of an audit. I come in, I take a look at any types of materials I can get my hands on. Time tracking, project management stuff, finance. I'll get reports written up for me. I'll go through an interview process. So I'll start with the CEO and kind of get the theory. Why do you think things are not going the way that you think, that you'd like them to? Why, where are the breakdowns? What are the problems you're trying to solve? And then I talk with the team and I'll try and prove those theories. And sometimes, well, not sometimes, I always find something else that is a value add to kind of say, all right, here's how I would position things. Here's how I would change things. This is the education that some of these folks need, because a lot of times the solution is elevating the team and their knowledge. It doesn't have to be anything extravagant. It's just starting to talk to them about business as opposed to just the craft.
Yeah, and then is every client a little different, or do you kind of have the same process that you go through with each person? How custom is your service?
How's that go? No, or maybe it's yes. That's from Bruce Clay, famous SEO guy. But anyways, the process is the same. I'm always going to go through a discovery. I'm always going to do interview. I'm always going to want to look at the materials, get my head around the numbers. And then from there, it goes off the rails. How does the story go? Everyone's got a great plan until they get punched in the face. Yep. So, it's that first problem that you've tried to solve 14 times with the CEO. And then you're like, all right, this is how we're going to do it differently.
Yeah. Interesting. I actually worked for a guy with, the company was called Evergreen Strategic Systems. And there were a few different variations of the exact product offering, but it was consistently systems consulting. And at one point it was called fractional COO. So it was definitely along a lot of these lines. I guess, but kind of based on some issues that company had, I'm curious, like, what was the scope of your work? Like, was it come in 3 months transformation and then I hand you the keys, you're good to go? You can use your project management systems, or was it kind of consistent coaching, more like a therapy, but with systems on the background, like a personal trainer? That's what I do. So how did it work exactly? Was it, what were what's the length of time you work with your clients?
Yeah, that's a great question, and it really just depends on what the need is. So there is the audit, and sometimes I perform the audit. I hand over what I learned, and they say, "This is fantastic, thank you." And then, maybe there's a little bit of engagement after. I always stay in touch, but that is kind of one angle of it. More times than not, there's usually something that the team is going to need help on. Usually, there's a centerpiece problem that needs to be solved. And then through coaching, consulting, training, whatever the tool that's needed to resolve that issue, I work with that team to resolve that issue and move on. So give you an example. Might be looking at the numbers, realizing, wow, we're always struggling. We're working so hard, but we're not making enough money. Come to take a look at it and say, all right, well, maybe you're putting too many hours in on these projects. This is a very common theme. Just about everybody I've ever worked with has had this, where they're spending 2-3 times the amount of time to accomplish a overall project. And the prescription essentially is optimizing how you do things, or paying more attention with the managers so that they can guide and coach the team to be, to put various tasks on guardrails. It's very easy for someone to say, oh, you know what, I got to go research this. I got to go make a list. I got to do this. I got to do that. Before they know it, they're punching 8 hours to that project. The day is done, but there wasn't a lot of deliberate action taken to push a project forward. And that's where a lot of times you'll end up with project budgets going off the rails.
All right, I'm trying to think how to phrase this, and this is kind of getting into the values side of this conversation. So I'm going to try to articulate a pattern I'm seeing and feel out if there's any.
This is where the Jake magic happens.
Yeah, we'll see. With your book, you were mentioning that you didn't start it or I assume before you released it, you got back, you got an ROI, you got a return on your investment just from the client ad, from talking about it. And one thing Devin also mentioned in our conversation previously is that clarity from writing the book. I don't know, maybe that played a role as well. But there's some factors, just the idea of like setting out and setting the intentions of doing the project, and then but you can get wrapped into things. I mean, I do these podcasts. Like I've got a process where I'm going to get this out. You know, I hit all my checks and then I publish it. But I also do, and that's more systematic. But I also do more artistic projects where, you know, I could spend a lifetime editing and refining, and um, you know, it's like a quality thing. So what I'm wondering from you is like, where's the threshold for when to publish, or when to stamp the project done enough to move on to the next thing and invest energy elsewhere? What's kind of that quality standard or the completion standard, or um, yeah. How do you think about that?
Yeah, so I guess I'll answer this just in a general context. So um, when you have an engagement with somebody, whether it be that engagement with yourself, like this podcast, for example, with myself in writing the book, or if I have a retainer project where I'm working with a client, you're making a promise. All right. It's very clear cut when you have a contract that you've signed with a scope with a customer. It's crystal clear at that point because you can say, "This is what I promised. This is my compensation. Now let's go." You know.
Mm-hmm.
So that's pretty clear cut. And when I'm in the process of optimizing that, I'm like, okay, let's break down the project. All right, break it down. This is what you promised. How are we going to accomplish this project? Break it down into bite-sized chunks. Usually, 4 hours is the maximum I would want a kind of subdivided chunk of research or documentation to be. Because if it's any bigger than that, then it is a little squishy. You know, it's a little bit too. You know, things can go off the rails. Extra time could be put in. You want to put those guardrails in when you're breaking down a project. All right, so there's that element of it. And then, does that answer your question?
Yeah.
All right. And then for the bonus is internal scoping. You know, you're doing this podcast, but to what end? What is the KPI for doing this? How many people do you want to talk to? How much you're going to learn out of it? Getting the number of eyeballs up to a certain level. You know, you have to know why you're doing it. And then once you know why, then you can start marching forward on making sure that every action you take is deliberately going towards that goal. All right. So it's the same thing with the book. You know, I wanted to get all of my thoughts out there. Actually, you know what? You mind if I ad lib a little bit and go down a
Yeah.
jag?
Yeah, go for it. I
All
love
right.
it.
So the book is actually just an experiment. All right. And we're talking a lot about operations. And I wear two hats. I have a operations consulting business, and I also have a search engine optimization business. And throughout my career, I've worn both of those hats. First, you know, a fun fact, I'd never been on a job interview, which is kind of fun. Second bit, while I was in college, I started that SEO company. I wrote a book on search engine optimization. It was a course materials book. I traveled the country teaching it. I then had a buddy of mine call me up and say, "Hey, making an agency. Want to come and help?" And you know, he was already established for a while. He had about 5, 6 people wanted to throw gas on it. So went on there for about 10 years, became their chief operating officer, which is how I got a lot of my operational experience. Grew that company up to about 30 or so people, and then did the adult thing. You know, met a girl, have a couple kiddos, decided, you know what? I want to be a dad and have the flexibility to do things. So about 6, 7 years ago, you know, I called up my buddy and said, "Sorry," and he became my first client, and still a client to this day. And we're still friends. I'm going to see him Friday. Actually, going to go out for lunch with him. Um, you know, so this is all to kind of then say, cut to 3 years. Now I'm getting onto why I'm going down this jag. 3 or so years ago, it was a brisk November, and everybody and their grandmother found out that ChatGPT existed. Now, I'm an SEO. That's one of my two core pillars of what I have done for the past 2 decades. What do you do in a world where content is the biggest barrier to entry, and content is the core differentiator, and you now see a path where content is free? It scares the crap out of you. That's what it
Yeah.
does. So after you get over that, you start to make a plan. So I'm using AI to completely revamp, and I have revamped my entire SEO business. All right. And as part of that, I also look, everybody that's listening, if you don't think AI is going to impact your life, you are sorely mistaken. And I'm going through this journey on this flying mud ball we call Earth, the same as anybody else. I've been a business professional for 20 years. It doesn't mean I'm not going to keep learning and I'm not going to investigate what's next. And one of those things was, you know what? I'll write a book. It's a good way to organize my thoughts, right? And so that's how the book came. I wish it was more, strategic. It's like, no, I saw the book, put some thought into it, talked with some folks that were on Devin's team, and I was like, you know what? This seems like a really good way to put a fishing line into the ocean of work that's out there and see if I can make a go of it. And there's other projects like the book, that I've done. I've met with coaches. I'm doing more speaking engagements. Hello.
Yeah.
So there's other things that are out there that I'm doing, but this all kind of wraps it together, which is, coming down to scope, making sure you get what you need and what you want out of it, and holding yourself to an internal scope of work. So
Yeah, that all makes a lot of sense. That I think defining scope was one thing that was challenging. That one company I mentioned, where it was we ran into, we called it scope creep. I don't know if that's a common term or if that's just what we called it, but
100%
yeah,
scope creep. And then the other one there, this is for bonus, is gold plating.
gold plating.
Yeah. So scope creep is when your client says, "Hey, can I have that? How about that too? You know what? I'd
Mm-hmm.
love that too." And the client keeps scope, creeping up on the scope. Gold plating is the inverse. When your team says, "You know what would be really awesome? I could go and do this research and come back with 10 more ideas on things that we could do." And the client's going to be so happy. All right. So now you have gone off your scope, and you're doing something that you feel is good, but in reality to the company, the thing that you're trying to keep healthy, you actually hurt it. And it has the same effect. You're using budget to not fulfill the premise of the scope. One is inflicted by the client, one is inflicted by your own team.
Interesting. Yeah, honestly, that's a whole different way of. I like that a lot. That's making me reflect on some of the experiences I've had. I'm gonna make a call about that after this, but I wanted to dig into the AI a little bit, maybe, and also I'm curious about SEO. So maybe I'm curious. I don't know a ton about AI. I use ChatGPT. This video description, I'll feed it some instructions. But yeah, thank you ChatGPT for this video subscription, which by the way will have all the links to your books and everything like that. But yeah. So what was the SEO world like before AI, and then how is AI changing it? And then we can kind of get into like larger, more philosophical impacts of AI kind of stuff. But yeah, first I just want to learn a little bit about SEO, and let's start with classic pre 3 years ago, pre ChatGPT SEO. How
Yeah,
did that work?
pre Chat GPT, it's about building a content library, becoming, illustrating to the world that you are an expert on a particular topic by creating content, uh, by creating content that illustrates that, marketing it so that the world says, "Oh, okay, enough other people care," and then making sure that Google can read it from a technical standpoint. That was kind of the blueprint: content authority, domain authority, technical SEO. Those were kind of the three pillars, and they still are for the most part. Yeah, and you build the giant library, you scoop up all the keywords you can, monetize it through whatever choice works. There's a few playbooks for it, whether you're doing email collection nurture, straight up sale, cooking them and chasing around the internet for a nickel impression, that type of stuff.
Okay, and then what's it like now? So now with the with content being free and at your fingertips, super accessible, super fast. How is that changing? Since everyone can develop these content libraries, so what's the difference in where you're focusing or where your energy is going?
It changes all the time, which is interesting. SEO has changed more in the past year than it has in the previous 20 years combined, uh, which is really, really interesting. Uh, this is it's gotten more interesting as an SEO professional because I will admit, when you go do a Google search, you find 10 websites that basically say the same thing. All right. From an SEO perspective, back then, and still to the degree now, it's like, how can I write a piece of content that is marginally 0.1% better than the other schmucks that have their content already up here?
Mm-hmm.
That is kind of the headline of it. It's like, kind of, can you describe your job poorly? That's what the world of SEO was. Can I create another piece of content that is basically the same as everybody else that has content here and the other 14,000 people that did it before me, but is just marginally better so that I can get the ranking and they don't? So, and then ChatGPT came around, spun the strategy all on its head, and also the process all on its head. And that's what's been really interesting. It's not so much the volume, it's not so much the external facing strategy that's different, it's how you do it that's different. Content brief used to take me 2 hours to do. Now it's 7 minutes. Thank you, AI. All right. Keyword research used to take 40 hours. Now it takes about 4. All right. Because you're scooping up all the keywords and you're leveraging AI to do a lot of the sorting, the processing, the context for you. All right. Content writing. You can do content writing with AI, but it lacks your tone, it lacks your voice. Can it rank? For a lot of keywords, it can. For some of the more competitive words, it can't. It needs some human intervention to make it good and unique. And then, when you're dealing with a categorization, I know this is getting too much into the nerd deep end, but if there's money involved, like a finance website or a medical website where, your wallet or your life could be in danger if you follow the advice on it, and it's bad advice, Google tends to favor human led content more than AI there. Because AI still has its flaws. And if a mistake in the flaw comes through and it's just all AI generated, even with the best of intentions, you could hurt someone. All right. So that's kind of how AI, at least from a content creation standpoint, has changed things. In some ways you can use it, some ways you can't. But a lot of that pre-process, a lot of that's all now automation. I mean, heck, I've got a computer down here, and its pure job is to pick up things and, do tasks, if you will. So it does summarizations, it does sorting, it does analysis for me. And it's all in that AI vein.
Do you have to use programming languages for that, or is it all just natural language?
I laugh because I now will put I have I used to do a lot of programming back 20 years ago. I used to do a lot of website programming. I did the website for UFC.com. I did a lot of sports teams. Like, I did work with the Patriots for years. Uh, work with the New England Revolution. But so I have that knowledge from like 10 years ago. And now, because I have that coding knowledge, like, I know what a loop is, I know what a set is, I but I don't know how to do it in Python, and I don't know how to do it in, say, different, more modern web languages. So I use ChatGPT to code it.
Interesting. And is ChatGPT coding it in Python?
Yeah.
And then so you have enough coding base that you can read through and make some corrections, and or if something's not working properly, or it just works.
Both. So what I end up doing, this is wild. What you can do with AI. I'm not claiming like I'm not saying that claiming that this can be used in any production setting, but for an SEO that has in-house tools that 3, 4 people are using, its quirks, so it doesn't have to be polished. So what I do is I just go, all right, Chat GPT, I need this code to do this function. It's like, okay, here's some code. Copy, paste, get an error, paste the error. ChatGPT says, oh, I see what's happening. You need to install this. I'm like, okay, I go install that, try and run it again. And I just keep copy pasting the information until I get the desired result. So do I code? No, but I know what I want, and I know the operational path to get there. And I do feel that this is how a lot of innovation is going to happen in the future. As long as you know what that path looks like, how do I get from point A to point B, you could do a lot of stuff that you couldn't do personally with AI and its assistance and get there pretty quick.
Um, so I've got a lot of like repeated processes that in my mind I'm always like, oh, I could make AI do that. But then when I think about like, all right, what do I type where? I'm not. It's like I don't have this coding background. I think I'm mostly just lacking the context. And so it's almost like I don't know where to start. It's not that the tool, like I don't have the abilities with the tools that are available, which I don't really know whether or not I do. But where would you recommend I start? Like, is it worth trying to learn something like Python these days, or could I just start coding, asking ChatGPT to code for me and copying and pasting that and paste like sending back the error messages and like, is it at a point where someone like me without context could get in there and start cranking?
I think you need some context. Like I was saying earlier, you need to know what that operational process is,
Yeah.
to get where it is. But here's the thing: pre AI, you would not only need to know what the operational process is to make it happen, you would need very expensive programming professionals to come in and make that happen.
Yeah.
Now all you need is the process, see a path, know how to leverage AI enough so that you can kind of get to where you need to be. And then you can kind of let the copy paste flow, if you will. I do feel that maybe 3 years down the line, you might get to a point where, I'm not sure if you've looked at Operator by ChatGPT.
Yeah, I've seen it. I know it's pretty pricey, but it's pretty
Yeah.
intriguing. Yeah,
But basically, you can tell it, hey, go to this website and make a reservation for me. So it knows how to navigate the web. So the fixins are there where you could basically say, hey, ChatGPT, or hey, whatever AI system, I need a fully functioning app in an environment. They call them virtual machines. So you can pick the VM up and move it around. I need an environment in a virtual machine that I can download and save that will do the following functions. And then I want you to test them by opening up the VM, using a browser, and performing the following actions. Keep working on it until you get the desired outcome. The only thing that I'm doing in the middle is connecting the dots and copy pasting. That should be an indicator that my role is not going to be around much longer, and eventually AI will be able to do that. And then now you're kind of at that point where it's like, all right, now you just need to know the process. What is it that I need to put into place into the mixing pot to get the desired outcome that I want?
Um, so what would be the best way to kind of like learn the how to navigate the context to choose a process, or like how deep do you need to go? Like, do you need to do a full boot camp or something like that, or like an equivalent volume of deliberate practice to get to that level these days where you could use ChatGPT to make these apps?
I'm sure there's a zillion ways to answer that question. So I'm
Yeah.
going to
Or
have
just
to,
what would be your if
yeah,
someone can't, yeah, what's your main suggestion? It's
yeah.
just
So I'll go back to your original question was, hey, can I do this copy paste thing with AI?
yeah.
So now let's stitch a couple of my kind of tenets together. Make an internal scope. What do you want to do? Break it down into smaller chunks, no bigger than 4 hours, and then start walking. And that's probably how it is. So let's say it was Python. One of the classic kind of coding methodologies is, all right, if I've never done anything in a language, I'm going to do what's called hello world. All right. And the only mission of hello world is to create an app that prints the words hello world. That's
Okay.
it. Every single programming student has done hello world with whatever it is that you do. So that could be your internal scope. I want to print hello world in Python. And that's when you start saying, all right, well, ChatGPT, how do I do hello world in Python? And then it'll probably say, well, you need to install Python and you need to install these libraries and then you need to create a file and then you need to open up terminal and then you need to run it. Done. All right. So I would encourage you and anybody that's listening to kind of set that internal scope. What is it that I want to do? Set that path. Break it down into bite-sized chunks. In this case, we made a 1 byte chunk project. But if you have bigger, plans, again, break it down into bite-sized chunks so that you're always progressing on a path that has an end to the solution that you want, and then have at it. That's how I've always worked. Like
Yeah.
I've never been on a job interview. I've always been an entrepreneur, and you know, I'll digress one more time. I apologize.
No, that's the point.
I grew up in that .com era, where if you knew how to spell HTML, you could scoop up as much work as you wanted to, and just have fun with it. And that was an interesting time as a college student, being able to just see all of this unfold with unlimited energy and stay up till like 3 in the morning with a pile of Diet Cokes and an empty pizza carton next to me. Now I'm kind of on the other side of it a little bit. I got a lot more wisdom, a little more knowledge, still got a lot of energy, but it's a different approach at this. It's not brute force like a lot of like the younger me would have been able to see. It's more strategic in this case. So it's been an interesting kind of full circle in my technical arm of my life, if you will.
Yeah, it's the more we talk, the more I'm realizing that the engineering side and the operation side, they're pretty similar for you. I mean, you kind of we've been talking about them separately, but yeah, it's that same process. You're executing the process. I didn't really think about SEO, just engineering, coding, website building. I didn't really think about it in that.
Well, those are projects, and the funny thing about it is projects and operations are actually very similar. The only difference is projects and operations don't.
Yeah, I like that. I've heard projects and processes kind of with that distinction, but yeah, it's like recurring versus one offs.
Yeah.
Cool. I wanted to ask it kind of just about, since you're in this world. I would say, I mean, it sounds like you're an early adopter of AI, and also you've got some context on the .com and just the internet technology, information systems. What do you? Then you mentioned earlier, like if you don't think AI is going to impact your life significantly, you're not
You're sorely mistaken.
yeah, sorely mistaken. I like that. So yeah, what are some of the broader kind of thing, like what are going to be the biggest differences would you guess?
It's not so much differences. It's I'm going to equate this to a couple other major shifts in work history. This the advent of AI is going to be faster and more profound than the invention of the computer, in my opinion. All right. the invention of the computer was a little bit of a slow roll in a sense. The computer, in order to be widely adopted across the world, how many do you think you have to make? Maybe a billion of them? Building a billion computers takes a lot of time. All right. Building an AI system and then telling the world about it basically is a publish to LinkedIn and a scaling platform like AWS. And if you want to make something new happen, you just publish it. This is going to happen very, very fast. And the other interesting point, and I don't know where this is all going to kind of ferret out. This is kind of like looking at that, first computer that's on Windows 95 with AOL dial-up internet on it, which is the equivalent of what we have now for AI. If you don't think it's going to improve, you're sorely mistaken. We'll throw that one out.
Yeah.
Of course it's going to improve, and it's already pretty cool. So it's kind of like looking at that and then realizing what you're going to do in the future. Search engine optimization didn't exist then because search engines didn't exist. If you wanted to learn something, you went to the card catalog at the local library and found a book. How far have we come? But that required the invention of the computer, the invention of the internet, and then the invention of all the websites on the internet, and then all the professions that come with it were invented along with it. All right. So digital marketing, website creation, programming, all of these jobs did not exist. Now they do. And we're looking at chat or just AI in general, and it's going to, it's already had a profound, impact on the search world. It's actually a little sad in some ways. If you were, I'm going to tell a story, then I'm going to go into the real part. Computer is invented. People did lose their jobs when the invention was created. If you saw Microsoft Excel or QuickBooks get created and run on that computer, and you were the owner of a factory that created paper journals, those were how you used to do accounting by hand, you were scared. You're like, this is the end of me. And it was the end of them. Because I don't even know if you could buy a paper journal anymore.
Yeah.
So those people got squished. Right now in just the SEO world, content writers. All those people that were dedicated to writing content, to write that next piece of content that was 0.1% better than the other 47 pieces that were on the top of Google. It's tough because now not only do you have a lot of AI pressure, but in just the global sphere of business, you've got executives that are looking at AI saying, you know what, I don't understand it fully, but I know you can use it. So here's a smaller budget. I don't want you to write as much content with humans anymore. I want you to write the same amount, but I want you to use AI more smart, AI in a smart way to accomplish the same goals. And now you see that pool of the pool of money available for writers shrink and shrink and shrink and shrink. And it's a bummer because I have a lot of friends that are writers.
Yeah. That kind of gets me into something I was wondering earlier in the conversation. What's your approach to trends? Like on a micro level, how do you try to stay ahead of these trends and understand how the SEO world and the operations world is changing with AI and just in general, how the algorithms are changing and all that? And then on a more patterns level, like what, so more macro patterns level, what is your view on, focusing on trends versus kind of timeless pursuits, or investments in timeless trends?
It's a balance. Trends, I think, are overrated. I think they're great for ideation, and I think you use your experience to pick and choose which trend you want to investigate. and maybe invest a little bit into. But a lot of trends are here today, gone tomorrow. And it's especially true in the SEO world. Everybody's got the next algorithm thing that they think they figured out and cracked the code to Google. No, you didn't. And in fact, it's the same. That part of strategy in Google has been the same. Be the best result. You know, Google is monetizing the internet by scraping up all the search, all the pages on the internet, and putting ads on top. They want that best result because they need to create that experience. The search user doesn't want to waste any time. They want to get in, they want to get their answer, they want to get out. All right, so they're looking for the best result. So if Google's looking for the best result and the person who's doing the search is looking for the best result, what do you think you got to be? You got to be the best result. All right. I am not going to, there is no trend that is going to take me off of that mindset. Hard stop. But you still got to look at the trends so that you can get a feel for what people are thinking. You use it for ideation. There's going to be a few ideas that you're going to go out there and push on. And then there's going to be some ideas that exercise your mind and you're going to make it up. And you're going to be that pioneer to push it out. And yeah, in those cases, I don't tell anybody. I just keep that secret to myself.
Yeah. Super cool. Yeah, this podcast is called The Quality Values. The quality part comes from that book, Zen and the Automotive Cycle Maintenance. I don't know if you're familiar with that.
No.
It's like a modern psychology book. It's basically a discourse on the concept of quality, kind of defining that term and exploring it. But yeah, and kind of my thoughts, somewhat based on that book, is that quality is like something that is timeless. It'll always work. So that's kind of an aspect of what you're just talking about. I wanted to throw an abstract question at you, and I was thinking about this over the weekend, and but just it's kind of more on the AI subject. It's kind of an out there question, but so some of the guests I've had on are interested in the microbiome or the soil biome, the bacteria. So right, it's the micro level, and there's billions and billions of bacteria, along with our cells in our body. So we're just a conglomerate of all these different parts, some of which are us, and then some of which are bacteria, arguably. I mean, it's all kind of us, but separate lives. And so it's, in a way, it's like over the course of evolution, like these bacteria have, and life in general has found ways to like combine into higher order beings. And so I'm wondering if you think humans are kind of the bacteria in the next order of AI. I was wondering if you've thought about it at all like that. Or maybe it's a little out there, but
it's out there,
I'll prod you with that.
Riffing on it a little bit. I mean, you can go down the alley of watching the Terminator movies and watch some a business called Skynet start to emerge. I mean, everybody's brain, I think, goes down that way at one point or another with the AI discussion. But I tend to want to think that AI is just going to be the tool that we get to use to propel our lives. If Skynet happens, I mean, I saw the movie; it was over pretty quick, So I'm not going to dwell on it. if that's what our world is going to be bound to, is the Skynet route, then that's that. But I just look at it as there's a lot of ways that this can go. Nobody knows exactly where it's going to land, and I want to do what I can to ride the wave, to learn as much as possible, care for my family, and keep going with it as much as I can. I don't necessarily look at it as the billions to billions cell composition. I mean, I look at AI, at least right now, as a tool that I can use no differently than a carpenter looks at a hammer. Right. It's just a tool.
Gotcha.
I don't even know if that answered your question, but was fun to answer.
Yeah, I was thinking about it, and I wasn't. I had them in my mind. I was like, guys, I'll ask someone about this on a podcast, but I decided to go there today. Yeah. So, what are you excited about next? What I always like to kind of we've kind of established your context, gotten to know a little bit about your story, dug into some things along the way. But what are you working towards next? What are you most excited about, or are you kind of just trying to optimize what you've got going? I saw that you did, and I see you're kind of wearing the shirt there. COO Alliance, is that what your shirt is?
Yeah.
I saw you. Is that recent? I think it was a recent thing on your profile that you went through their program, or
Yeah,
is
so
that
the CO Alliance is basically the largest network of people for second in commands.
okay?
It's run by a guy named Cameron Harold with a very fantastic, talented staff, it is a support group and kind of education platform for COOs. I mean, you could take a rock, throw it in a major city, and hit somebody that says that they're a specialist in helping CEOs. Heck, I'm one of them. Reclaim your role as CEO. But nobody really caters to COOs. So, props to Mr. Harold and the COO Alliance team for having a fantastic platform. I've been there for about 6 months. I just put it up onto the profile to kind of
Gotcha.
that's one of the things they say you should do with your account. And I was like, hey, I got some time. I'm going to go do this. And I did.
Cool. And then is that kind of like part of what you see next? Are you you've got the SEO, you've got the COO. It's and we were kind of mentioning there's a lot of parallels there, but are you kind of diving deeper into the COO? Is that what you're primarily focused on these days?
More AI and how it influences both
Interesting.
is what I look at. So my audit platform is now migrating a little bit into more of an AI kind of playbook. Mainly because that's what the demand is out there right now. So it's no longer about just going after CEOs. It's a very crowded space. It's about going after the operations team and making an impact in what with the knowledge that I have. My SEO course materials book, which was a fantastic template. This is a jag I'll get into because this is where what I am excited about is everybody and their grandmother can go take a course and on one of the major course platforms. It's a video on demand. They're going to learn a bunch. They're going to go back to their desk, and then they're just going to get back into their old habits. What I've basically done is I'm in the process now, about 80% of the way done, of creating a course template which templatizes all of the major processes that you would need to learn, but it has the ability to be customized. So I'll go into an organization, I'll perform my audit, and then I will take, oh, here's all of your pain points. Let me train you on leveraging AI to solve a lot of these pain points. So it's that merger of and uh, consulting and education that's going to make it so that not only do they learn something, but they get to learn something that will make their job easier, that will make their job faster, and it's very relevant to them. So this is how I have always envisioned training. Is it the dream of putting something up on the web and maybe it'll turn into $11 billion by being popular? No, but that's not what I want to do. That's not what's going to make an impact and change someone's life. That's not what's going to, it's not fun to me.
Yeah.
It's just not. I mean, I want to get in, I want to get my hands dirty, I want to show a bunch of people how to do something awesome, and then I want to see them do well too.
And I've asked this question to some other people that have been on the podcast, and maybe this is a good one to wrap up on. But when impact, where like when what motivates you the most? Is it seeing the expression in your client's face when they realize that you've alleviated their stress? Is it seeing the numbers go up? When you're reviewing the data, is it putting more food in the fridge, filling up the pantry for the family? Like when it comes to making an impact with your clients and your family in your own world, what are the things that make you the most happy, that drive you the most, that have consistently stayed with you through all the changes they've gone through?
Yeah. So I think on the work side, it's pretty easy. Always show value. And that's but I like to dig in a little bit more. I've been an agency person or consultant all of my life. And what that basically entails is I make a promise, aka a contract, for a certain fee to do a job. And I want to make sure that when I'm done with that job, if you gave me 10 grand, I want to prove to you that you made 50. That's never changed. Never changed. So that there keeps me on the green part of their balance sheet. It makes it so that they look at me and say, "You make me money. You make it so that I can give my team bonuses. You make it so that my team doesn't have as much pressure on them." In that artifact of seeing that unfold, to watch a team get a bonus, to watch a team alleviate pressure, to watch a team go from working hard and putting double the hours in on a scope to now hitting budgets consistently and not having to work Saturdays, not having to work nights to make the thing happen. That stuff I love. And it's a mutual beneficial, kind of, relationship there. But I always add more value than I receive. It doesn't matter where you are. Sometimes it's weird. I hear, "Hey, you made $100, but you only paid me 50." It's like, yeah, well, if I made 50 and I gave you 50, what the heck am I doing, and why would I be here? Oh, the other person needs to make something, So there has to be. You always have to look at it and say, "Am I adding more value than you gave me?" If the answer is no, then you're in trouble. You just don't know it yet. All right.
Yeah.
And then with my family, it's always about providing. And the whole reason why I went back into consulting is so that I can be a more apparent and more aware father. I go to the activities. I make them breakfast every morning. I'll drive them to school. Sometimes I pick them up. My wife and I very much have a cooperative kind of relationship managing the house, and the more I can contribute to that, both monetarily with what I do and physically with my presence, that gives me a lot of joy.
Awesome. One last question, just one more curiosity to prod, and just kind of a random detail. But how do you work from home? Is that
Yeah.
yeah? How do you you've got kids running around and this it's been your whole career. So how do you kind of draw boundaries and make sure you're not you can work forever as an entrepreneur. You can work 22 hours a day and still be falling behind if you're going about it wrong. So how do you draw the balance and the boundaries?
When my kids are awake, I like to be with them.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, as a business owner, you're working your tail off. You know, my kids used to get up really early when they were babies, or wake up in the middle of the night, and then I would just, 2 a.m. I'd be like, yeah, I'm up anyway, so I might as well start working. So I get up at about 4 every day, and between 4 and 7, 6, 7, until the kids get up, make them breakfast, and then do a little parenting. I'm not going to pack their snacks. If they want a snack, they pack it themselves. So got to do a little parenting in there too.
Mm-hmm.
And then, kids go to school. I work like normal. And then, right now they're at skating class. It's we're heading on 7:30. They're going to be rolling into the driveway, and the first thing I'm going to be doing is brush teeth, get ready for bed, the parenting thing, and then what I do is I don't read them a story. I make up a story. So I'll have, like, one of my daughters will pick a fruit, and the other one will pick an animal, and then I'll give them a quick little story at the end of the night. So of course it's a mix of being a dad and being a friend and that type of stuff. But you work hard and then you play hard. And that is a dying saying, I feel, sometimes these days, that desperately needs to come back.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that. It's yeah, and I like that little bit about your kids packing their own lunch. It sounds like you making sure they're not you're making sure you're not solving the same problem over and over again for them. They'll systemize that. Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on, Jason. I learned a lot, and yeah, this is really cool. It's fun to yeah, you've got a lot of different things to navigate, so it's always fun on this side.
Thanks for having me, Jake. Appreciate it.
Yeah.